For 5 years, Sarah and I built what I thought was a happy marriage. We owned a beautiful home in the suburbs and spent weekends with my cousin Jake and his wife Melissa. The four of us were inseparable, sharing holidays, birthdays, and weekend barbecues. When Sarah started getting dressed up for casual family dinners and hiding her phone, I ignored the red flags. After all, Jake was family. What could possibly go wrong? If you are watching this video, drop a comment telling me where you are from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how my world collapsed and then rebuilt in the most unexpected way. I always prided myself on building a good life. At 32, I had a stable job as a financial advisor at a respected firm in Boston. I worked my way up from an entry-level position right after college, putting in long hours and sacrificing weekends to prove my worth. My dedication paid off when I was promoted to senior advisor 3 years ago, managing investment portfolios for some of our wealthiest clients. I met Sarah at a charity fundraiser 7 years ago. She worked in marketing for a major retail company, and her confident smile caught my attention from across the room. We talked for hours that night, discovering shared interests in hiking, classic movies, and Italian food. Our first date was at a small restaurant in the North End, where we stayed until closing time, lost in conversation. 2 years later, I proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod, and she said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was everything we dreamed of, small but elegant, surrounded by family and friends at a vineyard outside the city. Sarah looked stunning in her white dress, and I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. We bought our house a year after the wedding, a charming colonial with a big backyard and a quiet neighborhood. We talked about having kids someday, but were enjoying our time together, building our careers and traveling when we could. Jake had been more like a brother than a cousin throughout our lives. Only 11 months apart in age, we grew up on the same street, attended the same schools, and shared countless childhood adventures. I still laugh thinking about the summer we built a rickety treehouse that collapsed the first time we both climbed in, or how we saved our allowance for months to buy a used dirt bike we took turns riding until it broke down beyond repair. Jake was my best man at my wedding, giving a heartfelt speech about our friendship that brought tears to my eyes. Jake met Melissa in college, and they married a year before Sarah and I did. I liked Melissa immediately. She was intelligent, kind, and brought out the best in my cousin. The four of us quickly became a unit, spending most holidays and celebrations together. We had standing dinner plans every other Friday, alternating between our homes. Sarah and Melissa became close friends, too often shopping or getting lunch together while Jake and I watched football or worked on home improvement projects. Life seemed perfect until about 8 months ago. The changes in Sarah were subtle at first. She started working later, coming home after I was already making dinner. She spent more time getting ready in the mornings, choosing her outfits carefully, and styling her hair in new ways. When I complimented her, she simply said she wanted to look more professional at work, but something felt off. Her phone became a source of tension. Sarah had always been casual about it, before leaving it on the coffee table or counter without a second thought. Now she kept it with her constantly, and I noticed she had added a new passcode. Once, when a text came through while she was in the shower, I saw only a notification from a contact listed as CJ with a message that said, "I cannot wait to see you tomorrow." Around the same time, Jake started coming by our house more frequently. He would drop in unannounced on weekdays, always when I was at work. Sarah mentioned his visits casually, saying he was helping with a leaky faucet or offering advice on landscaping. This seemed reasonable. Jake was handy and had always been generous with his time, but the timing and frequency felt strange. Melissa began reaching out to me more often too, usually with innocuous questions about birthday gift ideas for Jake or recommendations for restaurants. During one of our Friday dinners, I noticed her watching Jake and Sarah closely. When they went to the kitchen together to get dessert, Melissa leaned over and whispered, "Is it just me, or are they acting strange?" I brushed off her concern, saying they had always gotten along well, but her question planted a seed of doubt in my mind that I could not ignore. That night I lay awake next to Sarah, listening to her even breathing, and wondering if I was imagining problems where none existed. I told myself I was being paranoid, and that I should have more faith in my wife and my cousin. But the doubts grew stronger when I accidentally saw a text on Sarah's phone while she was driving us to a family gathering. She had asked me to check an address, and when I opened her messages, I saw several exchanges with Jake. They were ostensibly about planning a surprise party for Melissa, but the language seemed oddly intimate with references to inside jokes I did not understand. A week later, Melissa called me during my lunch break, her voice tight with worry. Ken Jake has been coming home late 3 nights a week saying he is working on a big project. But when I called his office yesterday, his assistant said he had left early. I do not know what to think. I reassured her there must be a reasonable explanation, but my stomach knotted with anxiety. That evening, I suggested to Sarah that we invite Jake and Melissa over for dinner that weekend. A flicker of something I could not identify crossed her face before she said, "Actually, I promised to help with a work event on Saturday." Maybe another time Melissa and I started texting regularly, sharing our concerns but also trying to convince ourselves we were overreacting. We met for coffee one afternoon, and she confided that Jake had been emotionally distant for months. I admitted that Sarah and I had been arguing more frequently over small things, and that she seemed preoccupied even when we were together. "It feels like I am losing him," Melissa said, tears in her eyes. "I do not want to think the worst, but something is not right." I nodded, understanding exactly how she felt. But despite our suspicions, neither of us was prepared for what came next. The first concrete evidence appeared when I was doing laundry and found a hotel receipt in Sarah's jacket pocket. The paper showed a one-night stay at the Harborview Hotel downtown, dated 3 weeks earlier, a Tuesday night, when Sarah had told me she was attending a marketing conference in Providence. The receipt was for a room with a king bed paid in cash. My hands shook as I stared at the paper. There could be explanations, I told myself. Maybe the conference had moved. Maybe she had needed to stay in town for early meetings. But why lie about it? And why pay in cash when we always used our credit card for travel expenses? I decided not to confront Sarah immediately. Instead, I called the friend who had supposedly attended the marketing conference with her. Amy sounded confused when I mentioned it. "What conference? I have not been to Providence in years." That weekend, Sarah told me she needed to meet a client for brunch on Sunday morning. After she left, I made a decision I never thought I would make. I followed her. I stayed several cars behind, telling myself I was being ridiculous, even as I tracked her across town. Instead of heading to the restaurant district, she drove to a small cafe in a neighborhood on the opposite side of the city. Through the window, I watched her slide into a booth. Minutes later, Jake joined her. They did not notice me watching from my parked car, as they talked intently, their hands occasionally touching across the table. After an hour, they left together, walking to the parking garage, where Jake had apparently left his car. Before entering, he pulled Sarah into an embrace that was definitely not cousinly, kissing her in a way that left no room for innocent explanations. I felt physically ill driving home in a daze, unsure what to do next. Before I could decide, my phone rang. It was Tony, a college friend, who worked at an investment firm in the same building as Jake's construction company. "Ken, I saw something yesterday that I think you should know about. Your cousin and Sarah were together in the parking garage. They were kissing. I am sorry, man. I would not tell you if I was not absolutely sure." 3 days later, I received a strange call from the Westbrook Hotel, a luxury property near the waterfront. "This is Matthew from Guest Services. A guest left a pair of earrings in room 542 yesterday, and this was the contact number on the reservation. The room was under the name Jacob Turner. I recognized the earrings the clerk described. I had given them to Sarah for our anniversary last year." That evening, I waited until Sarah and I were finishing dinner to say, "I know about you and Jake." Her fork clattered to her plate. "What are you talking about?" I laid out everything: the hotel receipts, the witness accounts, the phone calls. "Please do not insult me by lying," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the chaos inside me. Sarah stared at me for a long moment before her composure crumbled. "It just happened, Ken. We never meant to hurt you." "How long?" I asked. 6 months, she whispered. "I am so sorry." 6 months. Half a year of lies, deceit, and betrayal. "Do you love him?" I asked, not sure why it mattered, but needing to know. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. But I love you too. I am so confused. That was not enough. Not nearly enough. I stood up, unable to look at her anymore. I am staying at a hotel tonight. I need to think. I called Jake the next morning asking to meet at a coffee shop near my office. He arrived looking simultaneously guilty and defiant. "You know," he said immediately. "Yes. How could you? You are my family." He ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. "It was not planned, Ken. Sarah and I connected on a different level. We tried to fight it, but the feelings were too strong." His words made my blood boil. The feelings were too strong. What about your commitment to your wife? What about your loyalty to me? You have been like a brother to me our entire lives. Jake had the audacity to look offended. "I know this is difficult, but you need to understand that sometimes these things happen. Sarah and I want to be together. We hope eventually you and Melissa can accept that, and we can all move forward." I stared at him in disbelief. Move forward. As if this were a minor disagreement. You betrayed my trust in the worst possible way, and you expect me to just accept it. The conversation devolved from there, with Jake alternating between apologizing and justifying their actions. He even suggested that perhaps my marriage to Sarah had problems I had not acknowledged. It was a new level of betrayal, him trying to shift blame onto me. News of the affair spread quickly through our family. My parents were horrified, especially my mother, who had always adored Jake. His parents called to apologize for their son's behavior, creating an uncomfortable rift in the extended family. Friends chose sides, with most rallying around Melissa and me, but a few suggesting we should all try to work through this as adults. I moved out of our house that week, taking only essential belongings to a furnished apartment downtown. The magnitude of the betrayal left me reeling. I experienced alternating waves of rage, devastation, and numbness. I took time off work, unable to focus on client portfolios, when my own life was in shambles. Depression hit me hard. I stopped going to the gym, barely ate, and spent hours staring at the ceiling, replaying moments from my marriage and wondering if there had been signs I had missed. Had I been a fool all along? Had everyone been laughing behind my back? The double betrayal by my wife and my cousin, the two people I had trusted most, made it nearly impossible to imagine trusting anyone again. I ignored calls from friends and family, retreating into isolation. One evening, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. Through the peephole, I saw Melissa standing in the hallway, her eyes red from crying. I hesitated before opening the door. "I hope you do not mind me stopping by," she said softly. I just could not sit alone in that house anymore, thinking about them together. I invited her in, suddenly aware of my unwashed dishes and rumpled appearance. We sat on my small couch, two broken people united by shared pain. "Jake wants a divorce," she said after a while. "He says he and Sarah want to start fresh." Her words reignited my anger. Sarah had called with a similar message, asking if we could begin divorce proceedings amicably. Amicably. As if there was anything amicable about this situation. Melissa and I talked for hours that night, sharing details of our crumbling marriages and the shock of betrayal. Her company provided the first real comfort I had felt in weeks. Someone who truly understood what I was experiencing, because she was living through the same nightmare. Before she left, Melissa squeezed my hand. "We will get through this, Ken. Not today or tomorrow, but eventually. We are stronger than they think." Her words stayed with me, a small beacon in the darkness. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps we were stronger than our spouses believed. And maybe, just maybe, we deserved better than what they had done to us. After weeks of consideration, I decided to file for divorce. The decision was painful, but necessary. I could not imagine rebuilding trust with Sarah after such a profound betrayal. When I told her my decision over the phone, she cried and begged for another chance. "We made a mistake, Ken. A terrible mistake. But we can work through this with counseling. Please do not throw away 5 years of marriage." "It was not me who threw it away," I replied calmly. "You made that choice when you decided to sleep with my cousin." The divorce proceedings were contentious, despite Sarah's initial promises of cooperation. She fought for a larger settlement than our prenuptial agreement, stipulated claiming she had contributed significantly to my career success. My lawyer assured me her arguments had little legal merit, but the process was still exhausting and expensive. Meanwhile, Jake and Melissa were navigating their own separation. Jake had moved in with his brother temporarily while Sarah remained in our house. According to Melissa, Jake was pressuring her to finalize their divorce quickly so he and Sarah could make their relationship official. Our families were torn apart by the scandal. My parents refused to speak to Jake, while his parents were caught in an impossible position. At a tense family dinner that I declined to attend, my aunt apparently broke down in tears, asking how her son could have betrayed his cousin so completely. Some relatives suggested I was overreacting. "Your grandfather forgave your grandmother after her affair," my uncle reminded me during an uncomfortable phone call. "People make mistakes, Ken. Family is forever." I tried to explain that the circumstances were entirely different, but gave up when it became clear he would never understand the depth of the betrayal. The final confrontation with Jake occurred outside my lawyer's office after a particularly draining meeting about asset division. He was waiting beside my car looking troubled. "Ken, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. The family is falling apart." I felt a surge of incredulous anger. "Now you care about family. Where was that concern when you were sleeping with my wife?" He had the audacity to look wounded. "I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. Sarah and we have something special, but that does not mean I do not care about you. You are still my cousin, my best friend." "No," I said, feeling strangely calm. "I am not your best friend anymore. Best friends do not betray each other. You made your choice, Jake. Now you have to live with the consequences." He grabbed my arm as I tried to walk past. "Please, Ken. There must be some way to fix this. What can I do? Tell me how to make this right." For a moment, I almost pitied him. The realization seemed to be dawning that he had destroyed something precious for a relationship built on deceit. "You cannot fix this," I said, removing his hand from my arm. "Some things once broken stay broken. I suggest you focus on your new life with Sarah and leave me alone." As I drove away, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw him standing alone in the parking lot looking lost. Despite everything, a small part of me ached for the cousin I had loved, the friend I had trusted. But that person was gone now, replaced by someone I no longer knew or respected. During this difficult period, Melissa became my lifeline. We spoke daily, comparing notes on divorce proceedings and offering each other support. Our shared experience created a unique bond. Neither of us had to explain the complexity of our emotions to the other. We began meeting for coffee, then dinners. At first, we focused entirely on processing our grief and anger, careful to keep conversations centered on healing rather than revenge. But as weeks passed, our discussions broadened to include other topics: our careers, books we were reading, places we hoped to travel someday. I found myself looking forward to our meetings, planning my week around when I would see her next. Melissa was insightful, funny, and surprisingly resilient. In her company, I occasionally caught myself laughing genuinely for the first time in months. One evening, after dinner, at a small Italian restaurant, we walked along the waterfront. The night was clear and cool, the city lights reflecting on the harbor. When Melissa shivered slightly, I instinctively placed my jacket around her shoulders. "Thank you," she said, looking up at me with a smile that made my heart skip. "Not just for the jacket. For everything. These past months would have been unbearable without you." "I feel the same way," I admitted. "You have kept me sane through all this." We stopped walking, facing each other in the glow of a street lamp. There was a moment of hesitation, a silent question passing between us. Then, before I could overthink it, I leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle and brief, but when we parted, something had fundamentally changed. "I am sorry," I said immediately, worried I had crossed a line. "I should not have done that." Melissa shook her head. "Do not apologize. I have been wanting you to do that for weeks." The admission stunned me. "Really?" She nodded, suddenly shy, but I was afraid it was too soon, or that you would think I was just looking for comfort or revenge. Those thoughts had crossed my mind, along with worry about what others would think. "Are we crazy?" I asked. Considering everything we have been through, maybe she said with a small laugh. But I know how I feel when I am with you, and it has nothing to do with Jake or Sarah. It is just about us. That night marked the beginning of something new. We agreed to proceed slowly, both still healing from our failed marriages. But there was an undeniable connection between us, one built on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine affection. Our new relationship remained private for several weeks as we navigated our feelings and the potential complications. When my divorce was finalized 3 months later, followed closely by Melissa's, we decided it was time to be open about our relationship. The reactions were predictably mixed. Some friends were supportive, seeing our relationship as a positive outcome from a terrible situation. Others questioned our motives, suggesting we were together only to hurt our exes. Sarah called the day after she heard the news, her voice shaking with anger. "So this was your plan all along? To get back at us by dating each other? That is pathetic, Ken." "There was no plan," I told her honestly. "Melissa and I connected because we understood each other's pain. The rest happened naturally." "But frankly, Sarah, you gave up any right to an opinion about my personal life when you chose to betray me." Jake was equally upset, sending a series of text messages alternating between accusations and appeals to our shared history. In a particularly irate moment, he wrote, "She is only with you to hurt me." You know that, right? I chose not to respond, blocking his number instead. His opinion no longer mattered to me. The most difficult reactions came from family members, many of whom were struggling to understand the complex web of relationships. My mother worried that Melissa and I were setting ourselves up for more heartache. "Are you sure this is not just a reaction to the affair?" she asked gently. "Sometimes trauma bonds people in ways that do not last." I appreciated her concern, but assured her our relationship had developed genuinely and thoughtfully. "We are not rushing into anything, Mom. We are both still healing, but we make each other happy. Is not that what matters?" Gradually, as Melissa and I continued dating openly, the gossip and concerns began to fade. People saw how we interacted, the gentle respect and clear affection between us, and most came to accept that our relationship was real and positive. Sarah and Jake, meanwhile, began to experience problems of their own. According to mutual friends, the fantasy of their relationship had collided with reality once they were actually free to be together. The excitement of forbidden love was replaced by the mundane challenges of daily life, complicated by guilt and damaged family relationships. We heard they fought constantly, with Jake reportedly complaining that Sarah was overly critical, while Sarah accused Jake of being less attentive now that they were officially together. I took no pleasure in their struggles, but I could not help noting the irony that the relationship they had sacrificed so much for was failing under the weight of its own origins. 6 months into our relationship, Melissa and I took a weekend trip to Vermont, staying at a charming bed and breakfast surrounded by autumn foliage. On our final evening, sitting before a fireplace with glasses of wine, she asked, "Do you ever regret how this started? Not us, but everything that led to us." I considered her question carefully. "I regret the pain we both experienced. I regret losing people I thought would be in my life forever. But I do not regret where I ended up. I cannot imagine not knowing you the way I do now." She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. Sometimes I think about thanking them, as twisted as that sounds. If they had not done what they did, we might never have found each other, not like this. I understood what she meant. In the strangest way, the betrayal that had nearly destroyed us had also created the circumstances for something unexpected and beautiful. It was not a justification for what Sarah and Jake had done, but it was a reminder that even from tremendous pain, something worthwhile could emerge. 1 year after discovering the affair, my life had transformed in ways I never could have predicted. Melissa and I had moved in together, combining our belongings in a new apartment that held no memories of our previous marriages. The space was bright and open, reflecting the life we were building, fresh and unencumbered by the past. Sarah and Jake had broken up 6 months after going public with their relationship. The split was apparently acrimonious, with Jake returning to our hometown, while Sarah took a job opportunity on the West Coast. Neither had contacted me in months, which was a relief. I wished them no ill will, but I had no desire to maintain connections that had caused so much pain. Family gatherings were still occasionally awkward, but less so with time. My parents had come to adore Melissa, appreciating her intelligence and the obvious happiness she brought me. Even Jake's parents had reached out inviting us to dinner and expressing their support for our relationship. There is no guidebook for situations like this, his mother had said. But life is too short to hold on to anger, and you too deserve happiness. In the early days of our relationship, Melissa and I had worried we might be using each other as emotional crutches, a way to avoid facing our grief alone. But as months passed, we realized our connection ran deeper. We shared values and goals, supported each other's career ambitions, and found joy in building new traditions together. The healing process had not been linear. I still occasionally experienced moments of anger when reminded of the betrayal, and Melissa sometimes struggled with trust issues stemming from her marriage. But we communicated openly about these challenges, giving each other space when needed and support when asked. I had learned valuable lessons through this painful journey. I discovered that sometimes the people we trust most can hurt us deepest. But that does not mean we should stop trusting altogether. I learned that healing happens gradually, in small moments of joy that eventually outweigh the pain. And most importantly, I realized that being betrayed was not a reflection of my worth or character. Melissa taught me about resilience by example. She approached our relationship with honesty and courage, never allowing past hurts to dictate her present choices. When I asked her once how she maintained such optimism after everything she had experienced, she said simply, "I choose to believe that good things can follow bad ones. Otherwise, what is the point?" On the anniversary of the day, I discovered the affair we did not commemorate the pain. Instead, we celebrated how far we had come. Over dinner at our favorite restaurant, Melissa raised her glass in a toast. "To unexpected beginnings," she said softly, "and to choosing happiness even after heartbreak." I clinked my glass against hers, feeling profound gratitude for this woman who had walked through fire alongside me and emerged stronger. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unlikely circumstances. Our story was certainly not one I would have chosen, but the ending had surprised us both in the best possible way. Life continues to unfold in unexpected directions. The paths we think we are meant to travel sometimes lead us astray, while the journeys that begin in heartbreak can guide us to where we truly belong. The betrayal that once felt like the end of my world ultimately led me to a relationship built on deeper understanding, profound respect, and genuine love. Has something similar happened in your life? Have you ever found something beautiful emerging from a painful experience? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life stories of resilience and unexpected joy. And remember, sometimes when one door closes violently in your face, another opens to something far better than you ever imagined. Thank you for listening, and may you find strength in whatever challenges you face.